Okay, so receipt of the minutes of the Lake Taupo Protection Project joint hearings with Waikato Regional Council. Tanya.
Good afternoon, councillors. So this is the item that I have put on your desk. So Waikato Regional Council had their council meeting this morning where they received the minutes, and Councillor Kneebone requested a change. So the change is that he had a bit of a speech which was in the minutes as an addendum, and that has been moved forward to before the resolution. So that was the change. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder for those minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Mack and Councillor Kingy. All in favour? Oh, I'm sorry, we've missed a question from Kylie. Oh, all in favour? Carried. Okay, receipt of the minutes of the Lake Taupo Protection Project Joint Committee meeting held on the 14th of June 2021 and the letter from the Ministry for the Environment. Are there any questions or discussion on these? No. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Guy and Councillor Westerman. Thank you. All in favour? Carried. Okay, the adoption of the final asset management plans. And welcome also to our Audit New Zealand representative. Hello, Leon, welcome today.
Thank you.
Dennis, all yours.
Good afternoon, councillors. Have before you the report for the adoption of the final asset management plans. I'll take the item as read, but I'll just draw your attention to the section on significance of the decision or proposal. There is an amendment to the last sentence in that paragraph. The proposal under consideration is of significance, not of low importance.
Any questions for Dennis? Any comments?
Madam Chair. I think it's on page 32, Mr. Lewis, in regards of changes made for adoption. It talks about the mapped areas, which includes part of Marpra. Is that Marpra Valley, Marpra Road?
That'll be Marpra Road.
I might be ahead of myself, sorry, Mr. Lewis.
Yes, I think you're on the next item, Councillor Body. No more comments. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Taylor, Councillor Park, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, item 4.4, the adoption of the Development Contributions Policy 2021.
Thank you. Just as a quick summary, so we've been through consultation. We had deliberations, and there's a number of small changes which are repeated in the agenda item for you. Anything else to discuss?
Councillor Body.
I apologise for that mistake. I had them stapled together, but they fell apart. Just in regards to that Marpra, is it Marpra Road, Marpra Valley, or?
It's the Marpra Valley area, the area that was mapped to the Dixie policy. Okay. So the wider rural area resists is occupied, but within that area, which is close to the residential area, we've mapped that to the Dixie policy.
Just if I could just further on in regards to the contributions in Kinloch, that's still under discussion, so I have some reservations about passing this particular resolutions until that's been finalised.
Yep, I'll talk to that. We're a little bit in a catch-22 because the DC policy is required to be adopted for the LTP to go through. So I'll talk a little bit about why we think you should adopt the policy now. First and foremost, the policy is about identifying well, to allow growth to happen, the council needs to invest in a whole bunch of assets with extra capacity to allow them to connect. So if we want a whole bunch of new houses here, we need to make sure that our water treatment plants, our wastewater treatment plants, our disposal fields, the main trunks all have that extra capacity to support that. So we have a DC policy which separates out the cost of providing that extra capacity and allocates it to growth. That's both sort of fair and reasonable and economically efficient. It puts the costs with the people who drive the need for those costs and also those who benefit from them. Now we charge developers the costs, but actually it's the new community, the incomers, the newcomers, new residents or property owners who bear that cost. It's a bit like how we have a petrol tax that road users pay. It contributes to our roads, and we don't pay at the pump. We actually pay every time a shipload of oil is dropped off at a port, but actually that cost is passed on to the user. So that's who we're charging. We're charging the new community versus the old community for assets that are required to allow them to come and reside here. So those are the principles in behind that. The DC policy sets out a really clear process for how we determine that growth component that is fair. We take out all the renewal costs, all the benefits to the existing community. We work out what is the exact element of that project that is required for growth, and that is the bit that is allocated to growth. And then we work out a unit charge per new house. There is quite a jump in the charges this time round, which has surprised some of the developers. And there's a couple of reasons for this jump, which I just want to quickly summarise. The main one is that we've had really strong growth of the last period, and that's had a few impacts. Firstly, future growth projects that were sort of way out in the distance have now come forward into the LTP, and they're now needed, and so that's a added growth component that is now charged for. There were a number of future growth projects that were sort of always envisaged, but they were out in the future as sort of high-level cost estimates. Now they've been designed, or scoped at least. Some have gone out to tender, some are being built. So where we had a high sort of price estimate with quite a lot of uncertainty, that uncertainty isn't really reflected in the DCs. We can't include a 40-50% contingency, we can't put a price range, we have to do a best estimate. And a lot of those costs have been revised once we know the location, the exact specs, the ground conditions, and of course we're in a booming construction sector and there's challenging procurement process at the moment. There's also been significant new impacts on wastewater disposal. The Regional Council is more concerned about nitrogen and how concentrated that is. So there's a whole bunch of land we had for disposal that we thought would carry us for the next 20 years. Now it's fully allocated. We have to find new land. We've got to build pipes out to that land and all the infrastructure to go with it. So there are a whole bunch of new projects in there to cater to growth that are needed for growth. If we don't do them, we can't have the growth. And the policy allocates that to growth. So all the costs are driven by the LTP projects, which have gone through the business cases. They're in the LTP. The community is funding its share, and that's sort of the case. The expectation is that the cost of those will all be passed on to the new communities through developers. There may be a couple of cases where developers have agreements in place and have already developed and sold the sections, and they're being caught by this, and that's a little bit different. But that's to do with those agreements and whether or not they want to renegotiate them, rather than the policy, which is about forward development.
Thank you, Aidan. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just following on, perhaps a little bit on Councillor Body's sentiment, and seeing where he's coming from. I think that in the event of any recommendations required, if they're required or not, there's some clauses in there anyway, so I'm happy to recommend, move the recommendation 1 and 2, A, B, and part 1 and part 2.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. And Councillor Westerman.
I'm not feeling 100% comfortable on it because it is it has caught some developers short, as we discussed the other day, to the tune of $2 million for one of the Kinloch developers. They have sold those sections at a fixed price, and they had no indication that this increase was going to be what it was. Now, we're talking double. It's not a small amount, it's double what they have been paying in the past. So there was no real lead-in, from what I can tell from the developers I've spoken to. And, you know, I know that it really does affect the Kinloch guys particularly badly, but you look at the development that's happening around town, and I was thinking if the private plan change goes ahead, 780 Lock Views goes ahead, you've got all of Benton's stuff up the hill, Jarden Mile sitting up there that still hasn't been finished. If the Rangatira farm development goes ahead along Cash Bay Road, the continuation of John Penny's subdivision up off 4 Mile Bay near Naroto, and even ourselves, the council, with our land that we haven't developed yet. There is a huge amount of people who will be rated on, and I'm talking thousands, over the next couple of years. And we seem to have this idea that we've got this minimal growth rate on the population. In one part of the report, it talks about the elderly, and then the other part of the report, it does refer to some of the growth that's hasn't been most probably recognised to what it is going to be. And I think the developers around town are being caught by this, and it worries me that we've got such a huge jump out there, and once we've committed to this resolution, they will be penalised by it. So I'm seriously concerned that we haven't got the numbers right for them.
Aidan, do you do any, not consultation, but do you talk to the developers at all before this was not implemented, but the policy was written?
Roger. Afternoon, councillors. I'm Roger Stokes, Development Engineer. Just to give a bit of background, the people, anybody that's got a resource consent now already is locked into the 2018 charges. In fact, and it still will be until Thursday, assuming it's adopted today. The only thing that this affects, I think there's probably two developers, the Seven Oaks one at Canlock, and probably the Penny development down at Lake Terrace. Now, they're not in the development contributions area, so they don't have a right to a development contribution. So they're in what we call a deed of arrangement area, which, and the reason for that is we never had the infrastructure planned, programmed for that. We didn't have the reservoirs, we didn't have the pipelines. So in this coming LTP, you've adopted all of those programs. So we suddenly see, right, we've got the reservoirs, we've got the pipelines, and these are the charges. These are the actual charges that'll, will cost to service the area. Now, in the case of Seven Oaks, they have actually a consent condition saying that they shall pay the rate of the DC applicable at the time of completion of their stage. So that is a condition we've been putting on all developments in those unserviced areas since about 2016. So people sometimes get caught, the ones in 2016 paid 2018 charges. Now in this case, the charges are jumping substantially for Kinloch because we've suddenly, the water supply, for example, is going from 3,500 to 9,000. But that's because we've got a treatment plant, which we never had in the program before. We've got new reservoirs, we've got pipelines. So that it's real money that's got to be paid by somebody. Those are the projects that are committed by council and accepted. So either the ratepayer picks those up or the developer who's creating the need. So that's the position we're at the moment. So it could affect some people significantly, but on the other hand, we've noted the prices have sort of gone up for the sections quite a lot. So in many cases, the prices that people realised in the stages sold in the last year or so are substantially above where they were a while ago. So the question is, where does that cost lie? Those particular developers are not covered under the current DC policy. They don't have a right. So pretty much anything you do now doesn't necessarily affect their consent condition. We'd have to actually change that as a variation, I guess.
We've gone through a pretty robust process, I believe, to work out what is the true costs of these growth components. So for each project, there's a process we go through with the engineers where we really carve out what is the component for growth. We make sure that none of the benefits to the existing community are pushed onto newcomers to the district. So it really is a pure true cost that is driven by them and allocated back to them. If they're not willing to pay that, that indicates the benefits outweigh the cost, and that's economically efficient way to do it. The only choice you have is do you try and subsidise those costs through the ratepayer for some other reason. In terms of the fact that they're sort of future ratepayers, any backfill from the future ratepayers for these same assets is also taken into account. So we're not stinging them for anything that is not directly caused or attributed to them. That's the purpose of the policy, and that's how we implement it.
Thank you both. Councillor Westerman.
Most probably, I'll read from part of your report, and it says, elected members stand back and consider the council DC charge and confirm the charge is reasonable in the terms of section 101. Development contributions are not a tool to fund maintenance or charging levels of service for existing users, and it goes on. You know, I still believe we have not defined that when we've had these conversations with those developers. So I just don't support it.
Thank you, Councillor
you.
Westerman. Councillor Williamson.
Notwithstanding that logic, it's fair enough too. I think if those developers don't pay, who's going to pay? It's going to be. I mean, it is part of the DC's an interest of part of your borrowing, which is part of your rate, which is probably spread right through the whole district. But I mean, the reality is, if they don't pay, who's going to pay?
The ratepayer will pay.
Yeah,
It's not the developer. Yes, Councillor.
Let's continue with Councillor Westerman's comments. In relationship to section 201A, the territorial authority may make changes to the schedule required at any time without consultation or further formality, but only if, and it's the if of the A and B, I'd like explained. Does those circumstances change? And it will not increase the total or overall development contribution.
Yeah, so within the policy, it sets out the process and the framework for allocating the growth cost to growth and the steps we go through to do that. The actual calculations of those steps, they culminate in Schedule 1, which reports the project cost and the allocation between growth and the existing community. So that Schedule 1 is able to be amended if we were to review the project or change the circumstances around that, how it's allocated potentially or how it's interpreted or the scope of works. So those are the elements that the Kinloch community is keen to understand better. We have provided them all the information, but it's very detailed, complicated. They want us to step it through slowly in a sort of simplified document to work through. So that's what we're working on at the moment. We still defend them. We still think we've taken the right process and the costs are the costs. Once we've written that all out for them, they can have a look, and if there is anything of contention, we can argue that, and that would relate to a change in the schedule, should we agree. But we're nowhere near that. They haven't raised anything of contention yet, just that they want to keep to work through those details. So that's where we are in the process. In the meantime, we need to adopt the policy and press on. And if there are matters in relation to existing contracts rather than the forward policy, which applies to new development to come, I think that's a separate matter as well that could be negotiated, should that need to be.
Okay, adoption of the Development Contributions Policy 2021. It's been moved by Councillor Williamson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Taylor, thank you. All in favour?
Just before it's submitted, with your indulgence,
Sorry.
can I refer to the 4 options that are in the agenda paper?
Yep.
There are 4 options. Page 33.
Do you want me to read those options?
I'm just pointing out that they're there. The comment was made that we have to pass it today. Why are we then given 4 options in the agenda paper? One of which is adopt subject to specific changes, postpone its adoption, not adopt.
Regarding question 3, I suppose it is an option, but there are consequences in there that we'd need to work through pretty quickly regarding the LTP and what it all means. I mean, our clear recommendation is you can adopt it now with some clear guidance on anything you want to change, or adopt it now so that we have certainty around the rest of the LTP and we can proceed with today's agenda.
We had got to the point where I was asking for those that approve. All in favour? Against? Councillor Westerman, do you want that recorded?
Can my against be recorded as well, Madam Chair?
Thank you, Councillor Body. All right, item 4.5, the adoption of the Treasury Management Policy 2021. Thank you, Aidan and Roger.
Good afternoon again. So this is the adoption of the Treasury Management Policy. So this is, one of the suites of papers leading up to the adoption of the long-term plan.
Questions? Councillor Body.
No, Madam Chair, I'm just in a good mood. I would move that we adopt this policy.
Madam,
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, thank you. I will support it, but I raised it with Andrew earlier, just for clarity, if in case there's any sort of anybody is questioning it. In the Treasury Management Policy, the net external debt ratio to total revenue is less than 200%, and the benchmark for debt affordability is the gross external borrowing, different language, ratio to annual operating income is we've raised to less than 225%. And Andrew's given me the explanation. That includes pre-funding and unencumbered debt as well. So that's the difference between the net and the gross in the metric. So happy with that. Thank you. Everybody else can follow that.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson.
Yes, I'm happy to second it.
You're happy to second it. Excellent. In no other discussion? Okay, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 4.6, the adoption of the Revenue and Financing Policy 2021 and associated S1013 considerations report.
Yes, so this seeks the adoption of the Revenue and Financing Policy, which we are required to adopt before we adopt the long-term plan.
Any questions? Happy to move. Thank you, Councillor Park. Councillor Guy has seconded that. All in favour?
Before you continue, I want to go back to the Uniform Annual General Charge, which I had consistently brought up since this council decided to change it from 470 to 250 about 4 or 5 years ago. There was an extremely good submission made by Federated Farmers, and I think it may have been included in one of the submissions from one of the trust boards, that we can actually have the general rate, 30% of the UAG can be taken to fund the general rate. We've got to the stage now, I've often been miffed as to why it was changed from 470. Now I do know comments been made that the generators would not be happy, have not been happy. I don't know what consultation they've had with them, but I think it's now becoming more fair and reasonable that we all pay basically the same for services we use. And someone made a comments before about what you pay for petrol. It doesn't matter what car you've got. And I believe that UAG should be raised to fairly reflect the fact that at the moment you're based on a capital value that differentiates depending where your home is or what's on that piece of land. A UAG increase would ensure that cost is spread more equitably. So at this stage I'll be voting against the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor
Madam Chair. Thanks, John. We have this conversation pretty much every time, but I respect his point of view. I think the understanding, we have 6 rating sectors, and if you raise the UAGC from 250, you're going to introduce another $3 or $4 million into the residential rating sector. So 70% of your ratepayers will be paying more. It will probably have a lesser impact on some of the higher rating payers, but it'll be impact on the residential rate sector. So it's no perfect solution. There's going to be a few winners and a few losers. So.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Any other comments or questions? Well, it's been moved by Councillor Park and seconded by Councillor Guy. All in favour? Against? Councillor Body, will we record that? Thank you. Okay, the most important item on the agenda, item 4.7, the adoption of the long-term plan 2021 to 2031, and what a process it has been. It has been very long and very involved, and we've done it together. It has been a huge amount of work, but we consulted and we listened and we've changed things, and I think we've really focused on what our people want, and I believe that what we've ended up with is something that we can be really proud of. And there are certainly things in there that are different than we've ever done before. The climate change, for example, we've got that community and event centre for Turangi, which has been talked about for a long, long time. And certainly the housing initiatives are things that I'm proud of, and I'm sure that you guys have things that you're particularly proud of that you might want to talk about in this debate. But I just want to say that the staff have been brilliant, and we're very aware of all the work that you've put into that, and we're very grateful for the level of skill that you have and your dedication to the work. So thank you very much. And yes, I'd hand over to Tanya and then open it to the councillors.
Thank you. Just like to echo Councillor Rankin's words. This has certainly, so this is the fourth long-term plan that I've been involved with now, but each long-term plan has its own challenges, but this one has, from my point of view, has certainly been the most challenging, throwing a worldwide pandemic into the mix. So would just like to extend a huge thank you to all of those involved. There's been a huge amount of people. And would like to thank Hadley, who project managed the project for the bulk of it, and also Neil and John from Finance, and Audit New Zealand as well for what I believe has been a really collaborative audit process. So I'll invite Leon up.
Thank you, Leon.
Thanks, Tanya. Tēnā koutou katoa, Madam Chair, councillors, and ladies and gentlemen. I have to echo Tanya's words. And what I said to her before this meeting started, this is the fifth opinion I will sign on LTPs. And this was the smoothest. Not because you didn't have issues. You had really serious issues to work through. I think you did well, and I think your management and staff did a really great job. I'm quite chuffed with my staff as well, so I'll just put it out there. So we've provided you with an audit report which I understand has been shared with you, and we're ready to sign an unqualified audit opinion. In short, what this means is it provides a reasonable basis for future decision making and also for accountability to the community about the decisions you've made in the LTP. We also refer to the underlying information and that we believe that is reasonable, that support the long-term plan. And then we refer to some of the measures DIA referred to. One thing or two issues that we brought into this, our audit report, is there are two emphasis of matters paragraphs. The one referred to 3 waters, and that's just normal. Every council get the same thing because of the uncertainty. And the other one is capital delivery. In my opinion, all councils should have gotten that as well, because if you look at the capital works all councils are putting up across the country, that's a lot of money. And I'm not sure we in New Zealand as well as Australia together have all the contractors to service that. But I believe it is possible, and that's why, an emphasis of matter is not drawing attention to something that's wrong. It's to something that we also believe is reasonable, but we say there is uncertainty and should be looked at. Thanks again to the team, and I think that's my speech. Yeah.
Well, Leon, thank you, because your approval is very important to us, of course, and your supportive comments are really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thanks, ma'am.
Councillors, comments, questions? Councillor Taylor.
More of a comment, and I'll reflect on a couple of comments that our Chief Executive has made throughout this process. And if I'm putting words in your mouth, Gareth, if I get them wrong, you can correct me later.
He will.
Always be right.
Look, I'm conscious that this is a huge process. There's an enormous amount of work goes into this, and there's been more than 1 or 2 things around this process which could have, and arguably should have, distracted people from their works, not least of which a pandemic. We've gone through major structural change within the organisation. We've got a capital works program second to none, I understand, in our history. And we've got a town centre transformation project going at the same time. And when I look through this, it's an outstanding piece of work, and I want to express my thanks to the staff. And I know we've, as councillors, we've had to hear the submissions, read through the submissions and do that, but I suspect that pales into insignificance compared to the work done behind the scenes. So I'll go on record with my thanks for the staff who've put in an outstanding effort. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Very appropriate words. Thank you. Councillor Mack.
I agree with all that. I also would like to thank the councillors, of course, for their belief in the Turangi Recreational Centre. Obviously, for me, that's, or for us, it's been a big thing. I would ask though, because it is a matter of record here, I know it's an FYI rather than a submission, but can we add what the actual submitters were, actually how many there were, and the percentage that were in favour? And the only reason I want to do that is because I think it was 99.9%. And I think it needs to show as a record. No, not being funny. It needs to show as a record, just as a record going forward. When you look back, I think you need to look at that and go, well, actually, this was an overwhelming want, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor May. Any other comments? No?
Just very quickly, Madam Chair, my biggest concern in the long-term plan, and I congratulate the others, have the large amount of work that went into it. There's no mention of a second bridge. Is that correct? There is?
Yeah, yes, there is.
What year is that in?
Oh, through the chair, if I could just clarify that, we've moved it to year 5 from 10, so it's been moved forward.
And that's my concern. It should have been in year 1, and I think the indication was we were going to allocate money for that right from the start.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd also say that a second bridge is not going to solve our traffic issues. It's the roads in which people travel.
Yes, that's exactly right, and that's why SIPS mentioned in 2010-11 that the second bridge was a priority. That's been completely ignored. I've expressed my concerns in this building, and I've got no recollection of the figures being given to us, what we may be paying as a lease for a new building. And if I look at the Regional Council in Hamilton, they're paying $2.5 million for 400 staff. So that's another area that I'm very concerned about. Those things weren't discussed, so I won't be voting for this long-term plan, but accept the good things that are in it, such as what's happening at Turangi.
Thank you, Councillor Body.
So through the chair, that they were discussed, those things, and money has been put into the plan for lease costs and into the operational costs, so that's built into the plan. What we have not done, and for very good reason, is we haven't articulated that outside of the accumulated accounts at this point, because we are obviously in negotiations with another party, so it becomes commercially sensitive. But that amount is within the built within the long-term plan.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Who would like the honour of moving and seconding the adoption of the long-term plan? Councillor Williamson, Councillor Park, all in favour? Carried. Against? Councillor Body, would you like that recorded? Thank you. Okay. Item 4.8, Rates Resolution 2021-22. Hello Tony, welcome. Would you like to make any comments, or are you just waiting for questions?
Just waiting for questions.
Okay, councillors, do you have any questions or comments? Councillor Body?
This is another issue that came to the fore during the long-term plan hearings, and some of it came from, I think, a couple of the Maori trusts. There was also a program on TV on this particular issue. At the moment, if you have accommodation within your property that retains, for a better word, a sink, you are actually rated higher than if you don't have that sink. And I think it was made very clear, and we had the gentleman today talking about housing, that more and more people are adopting that position to aid for elderly parents or family that can't find accommodation, and even converting car sheds with the desired consents to carry that action out. Now, we talked about the delivery of housing or affordable housing. That's a disincentive for people to actually produce that. So at some stage I would like to see us investigating that particular issue, because it may solve some of our long-term problems.
Thank you, Councillor Body.
Chair, just clarify, sorry John, are you referring to the SUIP, are you? Avoiding some of the criteria around that? Okay.
Are there any other comments, questions? Okay, so the Rates Resolution 2021, do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Westerman. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Guy. All in favour? Carried. Antonio, before you go, I believe it's your last week next week, and we won't get to see you again. And can I just say on behalf of all of the councillors who might want to add something themselves, but you have been absolutely fantastic and so supportive to us. You've got an incredible knowledge, and we know that we can always rely on you. So thank you so much for everything you've done. We're going to miss you. We really are. I hope you enjoy your new life, of course.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and I say with a lot of sincerity that I have really enjoyed working with this council. It has been fantastic. Yeah, so I'm not going very far. I will be in Whakamaru on the hills, trading in for my gumboots. So I really look forward to hearing about all the achievements that this council makes going forward. So yeah, I will certainly be keeping quite an interest.
And if you get bored, I'm sure there's always a chance for you to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Okay, item 4.9, the grant of easement for water over part of the Tongariro domain. And I believe that a previous council loved Australian trees, which has caused the problem we've got today. Gemma, tell us about it.
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. The paper that is in front of you, I don't propose to read it off, but I would just summarise that there's the water main for Acacia Bay being upgraded at the minute, and as part of that, one of the challenges was identified in respect of these trees that, as you say, are amenity trees protected under our district plan, and in all of the process and the policies we have in place have made the assessment that probably the right location for this particular water main is actually through the reserve and the location shown on the page. So in order to deal with that under the Reserves Act, a decision from yourselves is required in terms of an easement to confirm that as the preferred option. But I'm happy to answer any questions or try to, or you might have.
Councillor Westerman has a question.
I look at these trees every day and I see no beauty there. I just see hazards, the bark coming off, they are a distraction, and I can't understand why we just haven't cut them down years ago.
Because we would have to change the district plan to do so. Yvonne, we can't just go out there cutting things down willy-nilly. Bless.
Can I just confirm through the chair why they're protected? What do we say?
Through the district plan process, the Taupō District Plan process, there was an exercise that identified notable and amenity trees. I can't specifically recall stuff. Nick might know more about the specifics of those particular trees, but there are essentially an area that's protected around those trees. That means that works within that space need consents to deal with them because they've been identified as specifically important trees by the community.
And I am advised that we will be changing this in our review, our district plan review.
You'll be considering it. So
we'll be considering
So you can't today make the decision to cut the trees down. Essentially, they're there, and we can't run a process in time to be able to do this water main. So talk about options of the report, there really isn't any, because we have to go around them because we can't go through the process. The district plan process will identify whether or not those trees are still protected and whether or not they should still be protected, but we, as I say, that's a very long process. If we were to set forth on that today, we'd be looking at 12, 18 months, and of course we can't wait that long for the water main process.
Any other questions? Yvonne, I can see you're tempted to say something. You're thinking better of it. Yes, Councillor Taylor.
In the absence of being able to move what is a very large standing block of firewood, I'm happy to move that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, you've all seen the recommendation. We've had it moved by Councillor Taylor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Park, thank you very much. All in favour? Carried. Oh, against, I should have said, just in case. Nobody. Carried. Thank you. Item 4.10, delegation of authority to the Mayor and the Chief Executive for airport terminal and car park construction contracts. Philip and Daniel, welcome.
Kia ora.
Now you're aware that we've had some concerns around this, and we need you to assure us today that everything that is required to be done has been done in terms of making the very best decision.
Great. So in presenting this agenda item, I've got sort of 4 or 5 or 6 items I'd like to touch on leading to a recommendation. And we've been working on this project for several years, initially to secure Crown funding, and more recently to complete the design, followed by the procurement of suitably qualified and resourced and experienced contractors to undertake the construction of the airport terminal and the car park. The capital works budget for the project is $9.237 million, of which $5 million was a grant provided by the Provincial Development Unit. Just over $3.3 million comes through the long-term plan, and $870,000 of that comes from the Ministry of Transport, who are joint partners in the airport with TDC. And this project will ensure the sustainable future of one of the most important pieces of connectivity infrastructure in the district. The recommendation is that Council delegates authority to the Mayor and the Chief Executive to enter contracts for the construction of the Taupo Airport Terminal and associated car parks. We undertook a robust two-step procurement process, with the first step being the registration of interest, where we selected 2 potential bidders to go through for the terminal works. Both of these were local contractors. And the second step was for a request for tender, and both of our bidders submitted conforming bids. These were evaluated by an evaluation team of 4, including industry experts, and there was a non-voting facilitator on the evaluation team. It was determined following this process that Watts Construction 2018 Limited would be the preferred supplier for the terminal build, and a similar process was undertaken for the car park construction, which resulted in Camex being the preferred supplier. During the evaluation process of the terminal construction, new information surfaced, which was discussed with the preferred supplier for the terminal, and this new information has been considered in the development of the financial and quality controls. The financial controls are as followed, and we've undertaken credit checks on Watts Construction, and we've also received a letter from their chartered accountant which confirms solvency, including after any contingent liabilities. The constructual mitigators include the PPSA, or the Personal Property Securities Act, which ensures that any materials on site will be the ownership of Council throughout the project, and also that Council will have unencumbered possession of the site should the preferred supplier be liquidated or go into receivership. Some of the quality controls that we've put in place include the project manager, who's also the architect and intimately knows the design of this project and has designed it from the beginning. He'll be physically present on site during construction, upholding strict project management practices. We'll be working from well-prepared plans, and we know that the plans are well prepared because when we went to the market and we got our bids back, they were the bids were very similar in price, which confirmed that to us. They'll be stringently managing variations in accordance with the contract, and we'll have open communication and good record keeping. We've also got a design consulting team who are contracted to provide construction observation to the completion of the project, which provide Council with a further layer of risk mitigation. This team includes architects, engineers, and a quantity surveyor who will review and approve all claims before a payment is processed. As part of their due diligence, we had 3 referees that were submitted. One of them was for recent works at the AC Baths, including the new hydro slide, the private pools, and urgent repairs to the 25-metre indoor pool, plus the new reception area. The TDC's facility team has no issues with the quality of the workmanship, and the variations were minimal. The second referee was a project manager who had done work at Nature's Flame with Watts Construction Limited, and the feedback was that Watts Construction delivered the project within the critical timeline, had systems in place to manage any variations, and valued their reputation. We also spoke with Sando and Associates, and they worked with Watts Construction Limited and represented the bank as the bank's QS on 2 projects here in Taupo, including the Taupo Medical Centre renovation and the Whitkills Paper Plus building on Hiahia Street. On both of these projects, Sandoz and Associates were pleased with the quality of construction and the processes supporting any variations. They mentioned Watts Construction valued and protected their reputation and that they would use them again. Sando and Associates also mentioned Watts Construction had access to numerous sub-trades within the Taupō District. Also, part of the quality controls is a robust contract and material insurances. And in preparation of the contract, we've been working with Bell Gully in Wellington to ensure that we have the correct commercial risk levers in place. And the master builders register checked, which confirm they have nothing on register that should cause us alarm. Those are the mitigations that we've put in place.
Thank you, Philip. That was a comprehensive report. Thank you. Councillor Park.
Yes, thanks, Phil. Just out of interest, this recommendation talks about council delegating authority to the Mayor and C, which is usual when there's a tender contract. But why does the resolution not actually, usually we say that council accepts the tender contract from, you know, there's usually a TDC number attached and then it's a company and the amount. I'm just wondering why that's not included in this resolution as all other tender recommendations usually do. It's usually like the first sentence and then it's followed by the delegation of authority.
Yes, so the agenda item hasn't made its way through the recommendation by the looks.
Oh, right, okay.
So we have...
Well, I just usually I would have thought that it would have said that council accepts tender contract from Watts Construction for whatever the amount is, type of thing. And CAMEX, sorry, Kathy, yes. But usually we name the companies and the amounts in the recommendation, but I'm just wondering why this one seems different to other tender recommendations.
So, from memory, it was a timing issue, and when this was done, and we didn't know if we would have that detail when the item was being prepared, but we do now. So, we can probably add that PKO.
Yes, it is sitting up in the. Yeah.
So some words for Shane.
Find it here.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
I've got a dollar amount for CAMEX, and we've got a dollar amount for Watts Construction as well. It's sort of in discussion.
So we haven't got a okay, we'll adjourn the item and come back to it, and we can get, if we can get that exact amount, Philip.
Yep.
Sure, but yes, if we can continue with the conversation, because there'll be other people that want to comment or ask questions. But if Philip, if you can give us the total amount to be added in there. It's Watts Construction, isn't it?
Watts Construction 2018 Limited and CAMEX.
And CAMEX. Okay, thank you. Okay, other questions or comments?
Just very quick one. I noticed in the agenda paper it talks about the funding of 3.367 and the council's 2018-18-28 long-term plan. Is that under transport?
We can answer that.
I'm just wondering where it sits because I can't find it.
I'm sorry. Does anyone know that? No, we'll have to find out.
He's asking where it is in the last
million allocated in the council's 2018-28 long-term plan, which I've got in front of me here, but I can't find that figure.
We'll come back to you with that, Councillor Body. Councillor Taylor?
So, look, probably should have raised this earlier, but just under total cost and contingency in that paragraph, you've got the Aircom recommend a risk workshop be undertaken at the earliest opportunity to understand any residual risk associated with the project. Is what you have just presented to us covering off that, or does that still need to occur?
The risk workshop around the contingency would be with the construction team as soon as we're on board. So one of the early meetings we'd have with the construction team, both the teams come together with the engineers and the QS to understand what risks there might be through the construction of the projects, because that's the construction contingency that we're trying to manage.
As opposed to any risk we need to be conscious of now before making a decision. Yeah.
it's to mitigate the risk through the construction. So that risk workshop is designed for the construction team.
Great, that's fine, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have an answer for Councillor Body yet?
I think we're still working on that. It is in the capital works program. We're just finding it in the last annual plan. So maybe if we come back with that with the
recommendation resolution. Okay, well we will move on then to item 4.11, control of dogs bylaw further review. Timmy, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Are you going to update us, or are you just ready for questions?
Well, pretty much ready for questions. The report, please take the report as read. There have been no changes since then.
Thank you very much. Councillors, questions, comments?
I know that this is an extension to work that's already been done, so I just wonder if the councillors that were on the ad hoc committee before are happy to continue in that role.
The three Johns.
We'd be happy. I'd be happy to continue in that role, but I don't see why we're regurgitating something that was made a decision, passed for by council based on submissions already made. If we do that, then we could go back in history and drag up a number of other things that maybe we should have further consulted on because it didn't go which way, etc. I'm totally opposed to it being regurgitated. The decision was made.
Thank you, Councillor Body.
Madam Chair, I actually totally support Councillor Body. I think, with the greatest respect, I mean, obviously, with I'm sure the consultative process was done legitimately, done quite comprehensively. I'm just surprised that 24 dog owners were unaware of the of what was coming up. So.
Nigel, who obviously has some comments to make.
Look, I think it's just important to recognise that what sets this one apart from consultation about other matters is that it's been identified that there was a particular issue with the newspaper circulation in that area, and it's a issue that concerns a specific geographical area surrounding that Beasley Park. So if you've got concerns that this, doing this process might reopen consultation about a whole lot of things, I think those factors sets this apart from those other matters. So we've had people that say, look, we weren't even aware that this was going on because of the issue with this newspaper circulation. So officers' recommendation is, look, in fairness to those people, because public participation is a key, we believe that it's only right to go through the consultation process just in relation to this particular confined matter.
Councillor Park.
Oh, thank you, Nigel. So basically someone hasn't done their paper run properly, so we've got to go through a consultation process. And how do we ensure that that paper run will be done properly this time?
We have the perfect person sitting in the room who's shaking his Poor Chris, we've put you on the spot.
I can speak to that.
I did attend the Acacia Bay annual general meeting of the Ratepayers Association, as did Yvonne, who always attends, and they were quite surprised that they hadn't heard about it, and they did talk about the problems they have with distribution of the newspapers. It just doesn't happen. I live there, it happens for me, but a lot of people, apparently many people do not have that newspaper. Miss Councillor Mack.
Yes.
Mr.
So yeah, I have to ask the same question though, is that if you really are saying that we're relying on newspapers, Turangi doesn't get newspapers unless you've got a letterbox. So are we saying that every time somebody doesn't like something, we've got to say that, well, actually we didn't consult? My bigger question would be is, have we changed what we do from consultations now? We don't rely on newspapers, we rely on other forms as well, or are we just sticking to what we know?
For this consultation, we did rely on newspapers to put out the notice out there, but then the comms team also used a range of tools. Mostly they were online based and sending out antenna. And so this time around, we are making effort to target particularly the residents of Acacia Bay and bring this to their attention. We'll be working with the Resident Association as well, just to make sure that they are aware.
So the question is though, do we open a precedent that if somebody doesn't like something, they can redo it?
I'll leave that to Nigel.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so. I think for those very reasons I explained, we've got a particular circumstance here where we've got a problem with the newspaper circulation, so people weren't aware of the public notice. But also we've got here a particularly identifiable group of people within a fairly confined geographical area around Beasley Park. So the realisation is that what will benefit those people is some targeted consultation in the particular circumstances we've got here. So that sets this apart from the more general consultation exercises that the council's carrying out with the community, because in this example we have a particularly identifiable group of people who weren't aware about the public consultation that was going on, and officers recommend that the way to deal with those concerns is to carry out some targeted consultation with those people, so that the council can be confident that it's fully aware of the views and preferences of those people who are particularly affected by this particular part of the council's decision making.
Is there any risk, is there any action that people can take if we didn't do this?
Yes, there's a risk. The council could be challenged with its decision-making process. So, officers' recommendation is carrying out this additional consultation will then address that risk.
That process. Councillor Taylor.
So, just a couple of comments. Consultation is the issue we get beat up with all the time. So, providing this, and I appreciate what both John and John have said, and I agree with them to a certain extent, but if this does not set a precedent, I don't see any harm in going the extra mile in this one instance. But for me it raises another issue around our consultation process in general, that if people are saying they're not hearing it, communication is only complete when message sent is equal to message received, and if you don't get it, you didn't get it. And I just wonder whether there are some things we could look at. So this is a specific issue that addresses dog owners. We have a database of dog owners. Would an email, general email to all those people, or are there other things we could do going forward? Not in this particular case, but look wider at our general consultation of a whole range of issues to avoid us being in this position in the future on other issues. You're keen, I'll stop there.
Yes, I got a light. So that's one of the reasons why we're setting up this community development and engagement team through the restructure. So it's about identifying and helping us engage in specific communities. So in this case, sending an email to all dog owners, there's some legal issues around that in terms of what we hold that information for and can we do that. But putting that to the side, it's actually wider than just dog owners, because this is about people who aren't dog owners and what they want Beasley Park to be used for or not used for, if you're a user for the kids' playground or whatever else. But what is really clear in this place is that we have a very strong residents association and a very strong community. What we didn't do was engage with that community specifically about this issue. And you heard the same thing through the long-term plan with whareroa and other things in terms of engaging with those strong communities of interest. So that new team, part of its job is going to be sitting and helping us engage with those different communities. So that will fix the problem for the future.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. I probably used a poor illustration with the database, but the premise is the same. Specific community, targeted consultation, we are appropriately opening the doors and inviting comment, yeah?
And we have talked about the fact that we're going to do different things with our communication. There's that team and the councillors have been talking about what we can do as well to add to that. So I think there are advances to make in the future. Councillor Body?
There are, and this protects the process, as Nigel said, in this situation of any challenge. The other bit that I'd say is that, of course, we're not talking about the decision. So the decision may well end up the same, it may be different. The councillors who you appoint to this will need to go into it with a completely open mind and listen to any submissions that's through. But again, we're talking only process.
John, Councillor Body and then Councillor
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you read the agenda paper, it actually states quite clearly, and Councillor Taylor has just echoed, the best way to get a message across is to use your voice. Yes. And if you read the agenda paper, it states there were 26 responses to this particular issue. Now, I know with the area that I came from, that was the other area involved, it only took about 5 minutes for someone to read something or hear something, and it went round that area pretty smartly, because neighbours talk to neighbours. And I find this thing quite disturbing that if 26 people had the ability to submit, you talk to one, they talk to two, they talk to four, it doesn't take long to go around that area, so I think it's a bit of a bluff. I understand what our legal advisor is saying, and he may be well correct, I don't doubt that, but it's one of those issues we submitted, people made submissions, end of story.
Councillor Mack?
I agree with just Councillor Taylor on this one, just because it's probably more goodwill, I'd say, and it doesn't set a precedent. I think maybe we should just look at doing this, but maybe with 3 different councillors, because I think we might have to go down that road and just be open-minded about it, because obviously I'm quite happy to sit on it and just see what they have to say if we go that way.
Thank you.
To explain, and Nigel pointed it out quite clearly because he came up very quickly after the meeting had finished, the information that Councillor Williamson and I went on was what the staff report indicated, that it was in favour to have that as an on-leash dog area. End of story. We didn't, I talked about going into a room and having a huddle and discussing what we thought, but that's the way it was presented. Nigel might be able to explain the way that happened, but that's the reality. We didn't sit in a room by ourselves debating whether we went along with it or not.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, yeah, I sort of, tend to sort of agree with John. Doesn't happen all the time, but this time I do. Yeah. I find it surprising. I mean, when it comes to the end of the day, I'm prepared, like John said, goodwill to go. I don't see it as a failure of the whole process. Obviously, the paper's obviously relying on is that the single mode of communicating with that group, not through websites or Connect or anything else. It's through the paper. We're relying on that.
No, we use the whole range of tools, but that was just one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was surprised that 24/1, 2 didn't hear about it and everybody knew about it. But I'm not presuming that necessarily. But so I just feel that the process was followed, and that's where I stand with it anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Any other comments? Well, bearing in mind we're going to vote on this, before we do I have any volunteers to be part of the special ad hoc committee? Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Can I speak up? Unless you are going to impugn the integrity of those that were on it before, I think you should leave the 3 that were there before.
And I was very happy to do that. There was a suggestion that it be somebody else, but if Councillor Williamson, Mack and Body are happy to be on...
I wasn't on the original.
As long as you can go into it with an open mind. Yes, if you feel you can't, you need to declare that.
I wasn't on the original, but what I was going to say is that's the only reason I was suggesting others, not because I didn't believe what happened. I 100% believe we've gone through the proper process. I think what we're saying here is that if you like, the people are saying that they didn't get a fair say. All I'm trying to say is if you had 3 different, if it comes to the same agreement, then obviously you're not going to be told that you just were closed mind, if you like. That's all I'm saying.
So the original committee was Councillor Williamson, Councillor Body and... I apologise. Okay, are you two, do you feel you would go into the process with an open mind? Do you want to do it? Councillor Williamson, would you be happy to do it again? Okay, and Councillor Mack, all right. Okay, you've seen the recommendation. The Johns, the 3 Johns, absolutely. And point 4 on there appoints His Worship the Mayor, Councillor Body, Councillor John Mack and Councillor John Williamson. Would somebody like to move that? Thank you very much, Councillor Westerman. And second, Councillor Guy. All in favour? Against? Okay, thank you. Do you want that recorded, Councillor Body? You want that recorded? No. Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, dogs take longer than anything else. Do you know we've had really big things, but the dogs have been the biggest. Yes, dogs and trees. The biggest items. Okay, item 4.12, adoption of grant and partnership. Oh, we're going back to the airport. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Are we ready, Shane? Or come back to it at the end?
That's gone. Okay, guys, just give you a minute to read the new recommendation. Yeah. The council Council accepts the tenders for the following companies and authorises the Mayor and Chief Executive to sign the contract documents and attach the Council's common seal to them. Camex Civil Limited to the value of $1,359,737.30 excluding GST in respect of the Taupo Airport car park redevelopment, and Watts Construction Limited to the value of $5,782,668.90 excluding GST in respect of the Taupo Airport Terminal development. Can I have a mover, please? Oh, good. Certainly.
I would have liked to, I'm very happy that we've got local people committed to this, and I would like to have waited to the mediation result just for the fact that I think Watts Construction deserve to have their name cleared and proceed confidently going forward, and I also think that allows council to be seen clearly having made a decision with all the information.
Any other comments or additions to that comment? Councillor Taylor.
So if we're putting it on the record, for my 2 pennies worth, we have had a number of issues raised and they have been addressed by staff, and there is we have been assured there is adequate mitigation sitting in behind, that this will be an appropriately managed contract, and on that basis I'm happy with it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Madam Chair, thank you for that. I support that. Obviously we had a very good debriefing on that. Thank you for the management, and I also have a high degree of confidence in the working group, steering group that came to the conclusion through the whole procurement. So robust process. I'm confident going forward that it's a good decision. Thank you.
Councillor Guy.
Yes, having been part of the steering group, the airport steering group, I have every confidence after our discussions, robust discussions this morning, and also the discussions mitigating any of the risks. So I would recommend that we accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. Any other comments, Councillor Body?
Just a little bit of clarification, just for everyone's knowledge. I got 5%, I think, in my maths papers. So I'm just wondering whether I've got those figures up there wrong. We talk about the contract valued at 5.7, and yet the total in the agenda paper is 9.23, with that amount of money that I picked up in the 2018-28 long-term plan. It talks of the car park and the airport terminal is 9 million. Not 5.
Philip, can you comment on that? The 9's the total.
The 9.237 relates to the entire project, including the construction of the airport terminal and the car park.
That's what that's saying.
Plus the professional fees and contingency and other costs associated.
So it's true, Madam Chair, is a 5.7 just for the airport terminal?
Yes.
Correct.
Well, we're talking up there, and the car park construction.
The total budget is 9.237.
And we have a contingency of 800,000.
We'd like to 300,000.
So to be clear, through the chair, that this is for the 2 aspects of construction. This is not the sum of the entire project. Is that correct?
It's a component of the 9.237.
Thank you. Does that help?
Well, if that is pointed out here, that's stating airport, terminal and car park.
Which is a component of the total budget.
Actually, he's right. It does say redevelopment, doesn't say just build. So.
And I'd still like to know where that 3-point-something million that's in the long-term plan.
Councillor do we need a reword there?
So I think the confusion, and John's just trying to find out, but the confusion is that that money was included in the airport statement of intent rather than in the long-term plan, I think is the answer. But the overall budget is what the budget is, and this is two components of that. There are other costs still to come, and some of those are referred to in the item in terms of some of the culturalisation as an example, but still within that budget which is approved through the Statement of Intent, and which includes the income from the PDU and Ministry of Transport.
I'm now having some real difficulties.
So am I.
If you have an agenda paper that states it's in the long-term plan, that's funding that's been allocated for that particular year and that particular long-term plan. I'm very dissatisfied with the answers that have been given so far, because if that's a fact, that is not in the long-term plan, this agenda paper is wrong.
I think shall we postpone it again, and I want you to go, whoever the staff are that are checking on this, I want you to go back and get each query answered, and we'll finish it at the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we are moving on to item 4.12, the adoption of grants and partnership policy. And Timmy, it's you again.
Hello again. And just, Councillors, please take the report as read, barring one minor amendment. In the report, we had talked about the Taupō East Rural Ward representative group being responsible for dispersing some of the grants. We've since changed that and decided that there will be a Taupō Town East Taupō distributor group that will be set up, and that amendment will be put in the report, in the policy itself. Policy won't come back, but it will be amended to reflect that. That's the only change, minor change.
Were you indicating that Kylie has a question? No? Okay. Thank you. Questions, comments, people? No? No? Right. Well, you've seen the recommendation on the board. 4.12. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Kingy and Councillor Guy, all in favour? Carried. Well, I should have said against, as I forget to. I apologise, but I don't think anyone is against, so it's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving along. Rose, I'm sorry, was there another part that we've forgotten? Oh no, it's
yes,
the next
it's
one.
another.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I thought I'd left you behind.
Just the adoption of the eligibility and criteria for the grants and partnerships. Take it as read.
Comments, questions? Councillor Taylor.
At the risk of getting way down in the weeds with this one, I just wonder, and I'm sorry if this is minor detail, but I just wonder, looking at some of the stuff around equipment and uniforms retained by individuals, I wonder if that's just actually a little bit too restrictive. Uniforms, we're talking clothing, it's for an individual anyway. Whether the group keep it or whether the individuals keep it, I'm down the weeds, I'll confess immediately, but I just wonder whether we're being too restrictive with that.
Yep, so that's a decision that's up for you guys to address. Keep in, keep.
Oh, well, in that case, I'll suggest we remove it.
And can you just tell me where that is?
So through you, Your Worship, Chair, apologies. I understand that previously we've had some individuals that have perhaps applied for, say, very specific sporting equipment or very specific uniforms for individual use, and then that's been able to be carried through for them to be able to use after the grant, and so this was in response to that experience. So it was suggesting that that returns back to the club.
So do you still want them taken out? Is it material? Is it better to leave it in there and it can be covered then if it's required?
Oh, all right then. Discretion of staff.
Discretion of staff, yes. We should leave it to their decision making. Any other comments or questions? Okay, once again, 4.13, you see the recommendation up there. Do I have a mover? Councillor Parker, seconder. Councillor Guy, all in favour? Against? Carried. Oh, Kylie has
I think that was approval.
Oh, it was approval.
Yeah, it was approval.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rose. Okay, item 4.14, Council's May Performance Report. And Andrew, I believe it's all yours this time.
Thank you, it is. Good afternoon. Apologies, Neil's not here to present this, but I'll do my best. I will take this one as read. In reading through this report, there's not a huge amount of change in this second to last month of the year. Most of the financial variances we've discussed and been over in previous months, and there hasn't been a huge amount that's changed in our trajectory. Of course, revenue is looking well over budget. That's money to do with Crown Infrastructure partners and other generous government organisations who have funded us this year. And I think we've talked about costs in detail before, so perhaps I'll just leave it there and invite any questions.
Any questions for Andrew? Comments?
Very quick
Body.
one, and if you allow me to leave my chair, I want to point something out to Andrew and see if I can get an answer. Yeah. This thing here, last month, the line was right up here. If you go back to last month, it's very hard to read. Yeah. Borrowed by activity. It's right up the top line, so it's right down the bottom. You have to go to last month.
Yeah, thank you. I'll have to come back to you on that one. The question is in relation to one of the borrowing charts, and Councillor Body's just questioning the data from last month. It appears to have changed in this month's report. So I'll just go away and check on why that is and come back to Councillor Body on that.
Thank you very much. That's great. No other questions or comments? Okay, we have the recommendation there. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Truman. A seconder? Councillor Mack, thank you. All in favour? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay.
Sorry, man.
Oh. Yes. We were not going to do that this time. Andrew was covering the entire report, and next time it will be presented to us, or in the new financial year it's going to be presented in a slightly different way, well, quite a dramatically different way, I believe. Of course, yes, I'm sure you will be able to. You'll have the information, it's just going to be presented differently. Okay, item 4.15, the representation review, the initial proposal for consultation. Shani.
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor and Councillors. This item deals with the representation review that you are required to undertake following your establishment of Māori wards for Taupō District for next year's elections. We've held 2 workshops at which you asked staff to go away and prepare an initial proposal for consultation based on the existing ward structure, in addition to our new Māori ward, which is proposed to be district-wide and called Te Papa Māoriaria. This name is for the bed of Lake Taupo and was given by the 2 chiefs who escorted Ngā Toroirangi through the rohe on his arrival. All the details are in the agenda, but the key changes are an increase in the number of councillors from 11 to 12, with 2 of those councillors being Te Papa Māoriaria councillors, a decrease in the number of Turangi-Tongariro ward councillors from 2 to 1. This is because of the relatively high Māori electoral population in that ward, and disestablishment of the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board. The reason for the proposed disestablishment of the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board is that Council is currently working with Ngāti Turangi Tukua to complete a mana whakahono partnership agreement, and following that a co-governance committee is proposed to be established which will empower Ngāti Turangi Tukua to make decisions in relation to Council activities in its rohe, which includes the Turangi Township and its immediate surrounds. The Co-Governance Committee will be delegated most of the work currently undertaken by the Community Board, so it does make sense to disestablish the Community Board as part of this review. And in addition to the Co-Governance Committee, the intention is that a representative group will be established to represent people in the remainder of the ward beyond the Turangi Tukua rohe. The Co-Governance Committee and the Representation Group proposals are not part of this representation review. However, that information will be provided in the consultation material to explain to people why you're proposing to disestablish the community board. Finally, it's important to note that 2 of our wards do not comply with the fair representation rule, which requires councillors to represent roughly the same number of people. Those wards are the Mangakino-Pouakani and the Taupō East Rural Wards. And you've given a direction that you'd like to continue with these wards because they do provide effective representation for those communities, even though they don't comply, strictly speaking, with that fair representation rule. So, are there any questions?
Councillors, any questions or comments? No. Councillor Taylor?
So the information we had on the non-compliance of those 2 wards, we were aware of that. Was there a process that had to go through with the Electoral Commission or with one other local government commission?
Yes.
And have we been through that, and what is the likely pushback, if any?
We haven't got to that point yet, so the proposal is to go out to the community with this initial proposal, starting next week on Wednesday for a month until the 9th of August. Then you'll receive submissions, you'll consider them, and you will make a final determination. If that final determination continues with the non-compliance in those 2 wards, that needs to be, the whole proposal will be referred to the Local Government Commission, along with any appeals or objections we receive after the final determination point. There's another month after that in which people can lodge appeals or objections to the final position that you come up with, that you come to. So when it comes to the Local Government Commission, they then make the final decision.
So it's part...
Which is where I was going with that, because there's an awful lot of work and a lot of steps in the process to have the Local Government Commission go, not happening. I'm just curious as to the degree of confidence we have that we're able to convince them that what we are proposing, should we, at the end of this process, still stay with that it's reasonable and appropriate.
Thanks. Can I just ask you, Shani, is the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board disestablishment, is that part of the consultation?
Yes, it is.
And are we going to be telling the public what's replacing that?
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much. Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you. Just to give some assurance to Councillor Taylor, during our last representation review, we had the same situation as we're facing now with the non-compliant ward seats, and we just the Local Government Commission came to Taupo, and we sat with them and presented our submissions and our passion for our different communities of interest, and they saw that we did indeed have it right. So we would hope again we can do an impassioned submission if it comes to that again.
Thank you, Councillor Park. Councillor Mack.
Okay, so for me, I think this is going to be a huge ask for you to try and explain mana whakaaro in a month. I think for us to hand on heart say we are going out there and going to explain to everybody what's coming, I don't know that that's going to work, in a month. I feel, I've been doing this for 18 months now, and I understand it. I just feel that we need to be 100%. Actually, I've got a question. Turangi-Tongariro, are they on board with this timeline?
We've been working with Turangi-Tongariro and shown them all of what's being proposed as part of this initial proposal, and indeed we've developed some frequently asked questions relating to the mana whakaaro, which we will link through to from this information as well. So if people want to know more about it, we can have that available for people as well, and that is, again, like I say, we've been working with Turangi-Tongariro to put that in place or get that ready.
So on that timeline though, will they also put out a statement to say what mana whakaaro is and what, and again, this may or may not be right. All I'm saying is that you've got a very small window here to change a whole way that we do things, and we need to be 100% that we've done the right thing. And we talk about last time we did this with the Turangi Township and the ward going out. Turangi people didn't understand that. We can say as much as we like that we thought we did a good job. When you talk to people, they have no idea that there's 2 wards down there. I just want to be 100% sure that we are going out there in a month. We are putting it everywhere. You've heard about dogs because we didn't get it out there with a newspaper. I want to know what it is we're going to say to everybody to get to everybody that this is what's coming.
Yes, we are going to do our very best, and we might not have all of the details of exactly what the co-governance committee or the representative group will look like, but we know enough to propose to disestablish the community board. So we've definitely heard your point and the importance of communication really to the community in Turangi-Tongariro Ward.
And to the board, because the board is going to have to sell this. So
that's right.
They need to be put on board.
Yes, that's right. So we are preparing things to basically empower you council, to explain this as well, and we're going to need your help to do that.
And Mana Whakahono is only one part of the representation. They represent only part of the geographical area, and there will be another arrangement for those that sit outside. So you'll be making that really clear as well?
Yes.
Because that'll be through ratepayers. Well, that's how we were imagining, but they may have feedback that gives us different advice for us to consider. Okay, thank you, Shani. Any other? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder for this resolution, please? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Councillor Truman. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Shani, still you. 4.16, extraordinary vacancy of the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board, Turangi Town Subdivision.
Yes, so as you're aware, we've received a resignation from Mr Ian Ashmore, who was a member of the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board. This has created an extraordinary vacancy which must be filled by a by-election. We've started that process, and this item is seeking your approval to spend up to $20,000 if the election is contested, and also asking you to approve the order of candidates' names as random order on the voting papers if it goes to an election.
Thank you, Shani. Can I just confirm with you, if there is only one nominee, then we don't have to have an election, we won't have to spend the $20,000 if we just got one?
That's correct.
That's right. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Look, I hate the fact that we're spending this money, and I know it's a process. I would go against this process only because of the cost. You know, at the end of the day, we've had two already. I'm totally against it only because of what's left in time. I understand we can't not do it, but the fact is we had to actually choose somebody once, and you know, at the end of the day, it was just exhaustive. So to save 20,000, I would be against it.
And I think most people feel like that. It's very frustrating. It happens. It's life. It's going to happen again, I'm sure. But we haven't got an option, and we have to do it. But it is a waste of money in some ways. It's a shame we can't just appoint the person who got second on our most recent election. But that's not the way the rules are. So democracy is a very funny thing. Okay, would someone like to move that? Please, thank you, Councillor Westerman. Thank you, Councillor Mack. Well, if you're not going to offer, I'm going to choose. Councillor Guy, would you second? Thank you so much. All in favour? Against? John, do you want to be recorded as against? Thank you very much, Councillor Mack. Carried. Okay, now we'll go to, are we going to the airport?
Back to the airport.
Back to the airport.
Right,
I hope you've
our...
got every single answer.
Right.
Or I'm going to be very cross.
And I hope this came up. I hope this. Oh dear. I hope this came out of confidence. Are we? Yep. It is on. Yeah. You hear me now? Yeah, it's definitely on. Right. I'll just go through this. So there's two parts to this councillor body. The first part, if I refer to you, the 2018 long-term plan, page. Bear with me a second. Page. What did you say then? Page 81, actually. Page 81. So it talks there about a $2.5 million equity injection into the airport. That was after the PGF fund application was successful. And then I need to refer, sorry, I'll let you see that there? Yep, that's the one. Then I need to refer to you then, because that is a capital injection to the airport, therefore won't show in those accounts because it's a CCO own set of accounts, so it's a equity injection. Then the 26th of November 2019, and I'm going to make an assumption this came out of confidence. If it doesn't, it is now. And there was five parts to that. First of all was accepts the $5 million grant from the Provincial Growth Fund, approves an equity injection of TDC into the Taupō Airport Authority of $870,000, that being the 50% funding shortfall of the redevelopment project. That underwrites, and then if you recall, there was another injection from the Ministry of Transport of another $870,000. So that should all total up to the figure we're talking of 9 point, whatever the calculation is. Yep. 9.24. Thank you, Andrew. That's why you're an accountant. So that's the figures. Hopefully that's some clarity on it.
Could I then just ask the question? Thank you, Mr. Ridd, for pointing out page 81. But the figure I have there was the 2.5.
Yeah. So
where does that balance up against the 3.3?
Okay. So right. So that comes back to the 26th of November 2019. No, the 26th of November 2019 confidential resolution, which is what I just went through. So that was 870,000 injection from the Ministry of Transport. That was then matched by this council. So that's 870 times 2.
Get Andrew to do it.
Plus the 5 million and plus the 2.5 million.
Well, there we go. So you remember
agenda paper's right, just hasn't broken that 3.3 down. Okay, thank you.
Look, it was, thank you for raising it, because it was a bit of a scramble to try and find it. We knew the money was there, but it was about what was that sequence that needs to get there.
Thank you, Mr. Ridd. That is great. Okay, so we are now ready for this recommendation, which I read to you before. Do I have a mover?
Sorry.
Oh.
Just one.
One additional piece of assurance, Philip. Thank you very much, and I think that everything you've presented to us today has given us a level of assurance, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Mr. King. Okay, moved by Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor Truman. All in favour? John. John.
Once again, we've now got it broken down excellently to Canucks car park, Watts, the terminal, 5, 7. I'm trying to balance it with the 9 that's shown on the agenda paper. Where have I go wrong again? Well, it just says the overall budget for the project is 9.237. Okay. Could I ask for a copy of that breakdown?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So through the chair, unless I've completely misread this, all we're being asked to approve is these two items as part of the overall project.
Yes, that's correct.
For crystal clarity. All that other stuff is still happening, but it's not what we're being asked to vote on today, yeah?
Okay, just to remind you, it was moved by Councillor Williams and seconded by Councillor Truman. All in favour? Against? Carried. How exciting. Excellent. Thank you so much. We can now move on. We're on the home straight. We can move on to council engagements. Any comments or questions about council engagement? Shani, do you want to take us through anything?
Just one engagement to add, which is the Zone 2 meeting taking place in Taupo on the 22nd and 23rd of July at the Suncourt Hotel. Anyone who wishes to go to that, please let Cornelia Bruckner know.
Yes, seeing it's ours, it would be nice if we had a reasonable turnout. It would be quite embarrassing if it was only me or His Worship that turned up. That's not a good enough reason. But no, if you could attend, and actually I've seen the agenda and it was quite interesting. I did get told off by the Chief Executive, so I've taken it very seriously, and if we can all be there, or most of us can be there, even for part of the time, that'd be great.
2 days.
Yes, Shani will send a calendar invite to everyone, and then it's up to you. And you don't have to be there the whole time, but if you come and
Madam Chair, I recommend.
Interfering.
Madam Chair, I recommend. I've been to the last 2 or 3. I recommend going just for networking, just getting to know what's happening around the fellow councillors and the other districts around us. So I found it quite interesting.
Well, perhaps Shani could also send us the agenda, because I was surprised when I read it. It looked very interesting, things that we would want to know about, and as Councillor Williamson says, you'll get to meet a lot of other people in a similar position to ourselves. Anything else, Shani, or anybody got any comments or questions about anything else? All looks quite straightforward. Okay, excellent. Can I have a mover to accept these engagements, please? Thank you, Councillor Park. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. And now members' reports. Nobody? Yes, Councillor Body.
We had an access meeting the other day, and Mr. King came along and gave a presentation on the town centre transformation. But it was an interesting discussion. The fact that on Scannell Street that altered that corner, and there was concern expressed that the letdowns for wheelchairs, etc., weren't up to, what do you call it? Roses at the back, up to spec. It was an interesting discussion because it was pointed out by one of the persons there that maybe they weren't asked to do that, and I expressed the concern that if we're going to have a contract to change a street corner, you take all factors into account. Now, it might not have been part of the brief of CAMEX, whoever doing that, but it may well have been something that we, in our renewals, could say when a corner's done up, we meet those specifications. And the frustration that we've got to, and I've been on that committee now 5 years, 7 years, we have certain specifications for certain things under access and disabilities that often seem to be ignored. Now, I raised with the project manager some months ago about the seating that's being done. Let's have an armchair, let's have arm things like these and backs. I think there was one put in the new seats in Tongariro Street. I don't think there's any more. I'm not sure on that. But they're small things, but they're being overlooked, and we're getting an older age population. We've got to cater for everyone. And it just seems we bend over back. I know Rose bends over a lot of work to make sure these things are properly done. Yes. We just get frustrated when they're not.
So through the chair, I could probably answer it off really quickly. So the Scannell Street letdowns are going to be done, and they were always programmed to be done. It's just that the job hasn't been completed yet. So they're within the retentions to go back and do those, and they are underway. So that was always planned, and we're communicating that back through Taupo Access Group. So it was unfortunate that we couldn't provide that answer, obviously, at the time, but they were always part of the program. The seats with the backs, absolutely, and this was raised as we went into the roundabout, and that's why you got the seat with the backs and the arms on there now, and that will be taken into account for future ones. So as soon as that was raised as an issue, and I must admit I wasn't aware of it until the ladies, I think it was, that came in and talked about it, made perfect sense, and we all heard it, and then you got some seats with backs and arms. So I think that's a real good demonstration of council actually listening to what's been happening and responding to that. Absolutely.
And thank you, Councillor Body. You have raised that before, and it is really important. Thank you. Councillor Guy, do you have anything?
It's been a fairly busy month. We obviously had the Taupō Ward drop-in session, which we all the Taupō people attended. The destination playground blessing. We had the Taupo Airport Authority meeting, and the Taupo Airport project meeting, steering group meeting, where we discussed the award of the contracts, which we have ratified today. Waiora House, that was really just to go through the concept design and high-level cost assessments, etc. So that's a work in progress. Attended with some of the other councillors to the Ngāti Manawa meeting over in Murupara to talk about the Rangitikei River Forum, and particularly around how that intersects with our geographical area, and particularly out around the Rangitikei plains there and the headwaters of the Rangitikei River. I attended the DGLT board meeting yesterday along with Councillor Park. I think we made outstanding contributions there, and also the fact that the two applicants that have gone onto the new board are outstanding and have made huge contributions already. And really so we're very excited as to where that is leading. I also met with the CEO from Amplify, or Economic Development, just to go through some of the priorities that they're looking at for this coming financial year. Attended the citizenship ceremony, a whakatau for the hospice CEO, at which David Ramaka undertook, and the KRG meeting with officers Andrew Peckham and also Tanya Russell. Great. So that's
well done. Thank you very much, Councillor Guy. Councillor Kingy.
Yeah, just probably a safety thing for me. Pleased to confirm that hopefully our community patrol unit, which we've been supporting under Safe Turangi, is hopefully going to be taking possession of a new vehicle within the next month. Still got some funding shortfalls that we're looking at to sign right and whatnots, but there'll be a big announcement, and you know, our council certainly had a integral part in supporting that group. Just under general sort of safety, we continue to see good engagement from Turangi at the safety hub. Had some discussions offline with some of our compliance team around some enhanced sort of, well, I guess, offers of support from Ross and maybe his team, and looking like what that could look like in terms of some engagement locally. Also coming up this Thursday, got a conversation occurring with an organisation called Ember, who are looking to set up a facility in Turangi, and so we're just sort of flying that flag under a safety banner. So very much a safety focused sort of time for me. So yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you, Councillor Kingy. Councillor Mack.
Mine more just with the community stuff, but obviously with stage 2 of the curb and channeling going forward. We haven't had any major issues yet, but obviously it's not out there yet that 111 more trees are going. So I've had a few discussions with people around Turangi. We've still got them, if you like, the positive side of things, and I think once we finish Rangipoia completely, we're going to use that as the template going forward, because there's going to be a few more. I think even for myself, when you're talking about 111 more trees and another 3 more sections to go, we are going to have 100 more trees going, and I think we have to get on top of the fact that this is just how it's going to be, but at the moment it's still a good space, and I think they're doing a really good job.
Excellent. I'm pleased to hear that. It's been such a bone of contention. Very controversial, but thank you, Councillor Mack. All good? Councillor Taylor.
A couple of things. Just over the last month, I've had a number of conversations around with different sporting codes around their wants and needs and some of the pressures within facilities. So that will lead into the sports recreation strategy and the work that's going to flow on from that into the future. Attended the local government review meeting in Ohaupo. That was interesting. It's gone, we're still online, I'll say it anyway. It was interesting the variance of people across the region who went from so far down in the weeds I couldn't believe it to those who had a clear strategic mind and thinking. So I come away from that, and I think we talked in the car on the way back, Gareth. It's like I can see why they want to review local government. But anyway, enough of my criticism. We've also attended the Regional Transport Committee with a sign-off for the Regional Transport Plan. There was a bit of pushback from Hamilton colleagues, and much of that is around our climate change and public transport investment in terms of the region. We'll see whether that transposes into a legal challenge. They haven't ruled that out. That's a possibility, but we'll just wait and see. Final comment would be, based on our conversation earlier today, is to make this part of the agenda valuable. I'm more than happy to engage in a conversation with all of us to put some structure around this so that it's actually, I'm not saying what we're saying now is not meaningful, but so that it adds more value, addresses the key things that we have as portfolios and responsibilities, and is beneficial for everyone. That's it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you. Mine's quite limited, but I'd just like to thank our colleagues for messages and support after the loss of my mother-in-law recently. I went to the Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee in Hamilton, which is always of interest. We've had a couple of Taupo Town Centre transformation meetings with landlords and tenants at Ebbett, Holden, and one held up at Westermans. I went to the Future for Local Government workshop with Councillor Taylor and our CE, and I agree with Kevin's comments. Also, there was no diversity in the room at all, and the attendance was really slack. There were some councils that had no representation at all in the Waikato, which was disappointing. And also attended Destination Great Lake Taupo board meeting with Kathy yesterday, and that you're correct, the additions that have been made to that CCO are fantastic. The vibe in the room and the mutual respect and holistic approach to all things good was definitely there, and it was a really lovely way to leave a meeting and feel really positive about everything that had been said. And the support back to council and the mutual respect is just amazing. They were so grateful for us being there, and are very, very grateful for the funding.
Oh, that's really positive. Fantastic. Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Yes, so there's a few things. Went through a public drop-in session with Kathy and Kevin, one or two others were there. Wairau House concept design catch-up. Urapara, the Ngāti Manawa Hui. Thank you, Julie, Nick and Dylan. Attended that with Kirsty and Tong, Kathy. Anybody else I missed? Christine, sorry. It was really quite interesting, just trying to forge, even though it largely sits out Rangitorou Forum sits out outside our catchment largely, it was good to forge some relationship with the forum going forward. Went to the Taupo Museum, Poepoe. It was a weaving exhibition by students of Te Wananga, Aotearoa and Turangi. It was very well attended, very good turnout. So it's worth going, having a look if you get the opportunity. Citizenship ceremony with Kathy. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for filling David's booth. Well done.
Thank you.
And once again, a couple of other meetings with the local community and the Taupo Town Centre Transformation Project. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williamson. Well, mine was almost identical to Kathy's, not quite, but nearly, so I won't go through all that. No, I've done some other interesting things. I chaired the VOP Mayoral Forum, which was really interesting. I went to a 101st birthday party and upset the woman terribly by telling her I hoped she had many more birthdays and she didn't want them. So she said to me, no, I've been waiting to die since I was 85. Don't wish that on me. So I mucked that one up. I went to a potluck dinner at Omori in Kuratau on Saturday night, which was really interesting. What an amazing community. Absolutely incredible. And I went to the Good Sorts Award at Harcourts, and I have to also say that I really enjoyed our visit to the Parks Department. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. The leadership there is quite astonishing, and we didn't know, well, I didn't know about that. I've never visited before and I've never heard them present, and I thought they were just outstanding. And the other thing I have to say is the mayoral role has so much support from the staff. They are just fantastic. They're there for every single thing you could possibly need and every bit of information, and I really appreciate that. They've been marvellous in the last couple of weeks, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you very much. And I think that brings us to the end of our meeting. So, Councillor Kingy, could you... I'm sorry. Look, one day perhaps I'll get used to doing it every time. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those reports, please? Thank you, Councillor Guy. Thank you, Councillor Park. All in favour? Carries. Thank you so much. Okay, Councillor Kingy. And thank you all for a big agenda and